Well, hello, boys and girls. It's your favourite grumpy granny from Groggy's Patch, and I'm back again to tell you how you can make money without actually having to spend any, and that is to get into those damn death piles. And how do I know this? Because that's where I've been sourcing for the last couple of weeks, from my own death pile. So you may recall I did a little bit of stock taking and found quite a few items that had fallen off eBay, which I'm working on relisting. But I've also been digging into my death pile a little bit. And it's been surprising, the amount of value that's there. And I haven't even touched the sides, honestly. I really haven't. Now, the first thing I want to show you, the first thing I want to show you is this particular listing that I've done, which is actually a variation listing. And this is my second Enid Blyton variation listing. I've already got one similar one up that I think had 47 books in it from off the top of my head. I haven't actually added the value of that one up, but out of curiosity, I added the value of this one up because I finished listing this one this morning. So the first one had some of the more higher value Enid Blyton hardcovers, and this one has some of the lower value Enid Blyton hardcovers. I've listed it in a variation listing. People can buy two and get one free. Now, if all these books, and I'll just scroll down, this is how many are in this second one. So there are lots and lots and lots. And these are all really nice hardcovers, and they go back, some of them go back as far as 1963. Now, if all of these sold for full value, that's a value of $491 in there. However, because I've got in my variation listings, people can buy two and get one free, we'll take that into account. So let's say we take a third of that value off because they get that one free. On average, that would still give me a value of about $327 just in this one listing. $327. So that's just in those Enid Blyton books alone. But what else did I find? Well, let me show you a couple of things that I found. Some are just quite interesting but still have a good value, and some have got uber good value. So this little book here is called The Parrot of Ishafan, and look, there's no dust. I haven't got a dust jacket for it, but this is a book by Frederick Field, which was translated from German, and it is just a nice little book here, and it is, I can show you this, it is illustrated throughout. It is a kid's book, this one, but it is quite rare. So it turns out, so I mean, some of these prices I kind of pull out of, the sky a little bit, because when you've got books that are hard to find, you have to go to various sources, work out, I'll go to eBooks and check what they're selling for in the US and selling for in the UK. I often base my books on what I hope to sell them for overseas because they might have a higher value than what they may sell for in Australia. This particular book on its own I've listed for $66, so pardon me. So that's just one. This one I thought was quite interesting. This is called A Dingo in the Family, by Jill Ryachuk, I think is the author's name. But everyone else had this one listed, but no one else has got one that has been signed by the author with a little inscription in there, which does add some value. So I've listed that one for $40. And then we've got this really nice, this is quite an old one. This is called Mr. Woo. And this actually is, like, this hasn't got huge value because it does have, a little bit of damage there. It's starting to come away there. There's a lot of foxing in this one. But this book is by Louise Jordan Milne, and it's actually adapted from a play by H.M. Vernon and Harold Owen. This was actually made into a movie as well. So it has got a little bit of appeal, and it's a nice little interesting storyline too. So this was published in 1925. This particular edition, if you can get one of the original editions, even if it's a reprint, it has a higher value. This was called the Popular Edition. So it was made with cheaper bindings and that than the original. But I still listed that for $40. Another interesting one I found was this one, which is by Katherine Laurant and Dernier Campagne. Don't ask me what it's about. Well, quite interesting what I think it's about from what I can work out. It's a bit of a sexy one, this one. But again, I discovered that this one has been inscribed and signed by the author. And interestingly, this one says, for Alexis, what a chance to meet you in such a strange place named Nemea. I'm very happy and honoured. With all my kindness and admiration, Katherine signed Nemea in 2003. And yeah, I believe this is in French, so that's why I can't tell you what the storyline is. But from what I can work out, it is a little bit of a sexy one. And again, I have listed that one for $50. And there were no others of that particular book around. So, yeah, pretty good. This is a lovely little one I found, which is a book of poetry. And this is by Agnes Littlejohn, who is an Australian. She was an artist and a writer, but this is her poetry. It would have been nice, actually. It's very nice. It's got red. I'll get it so you can see it. The lighting's not too good, is it? It's got lovely red around each page of the poetry, and then there are illustrations in there. Because she was an artist, I actually thought it would have been quite nice if the illustrations inside the book were by her, but they're not. They're by another Australian artist, well-known artist. This artist actually placed in some of the what is it? The portrait prize that we have here. But anyway, it's got some lovely poetry in it, and these are so this one was published in 1929, and the poetry is very much very patriotic sort of type stuff. So I have listed this for nearly $90. Another rare one I found when I was looking is this book called A Man Under Authority by Ethel Dell. And this one is quite scarce, I have to say. It's in reasonably good condition, given that it is, it does have a little bit of foxing. But overall, it's actually in pretty good condition. 1925, this one's from. And I've listed that one for $98. Then we've got this one, which is Keepers of the Kingdom. This is a more modern book by Glenita Miller, and this is a novel, but she was a person that worked with saving wildlife, and she used her own experiences to actually write this actual novel about people that worked with and saved the elephants in Kenya. So quite a good story. It's in really great conditions. Got a lovely dust jacket. There is basically no discoloration whatsoever, which is fantastic. This is a Hodder and Stoughton one and published in 1983. So this is a first edition. So I've listed that one for $130. And then we have this one here. So this one has got a vinyl covering on it, which I've left on because that is protecting the dust jacket. I can take it. Oops. You see there, it would easily come off. But this book is called A Woman Wrapped in Silence. And it's quite an unusual book, and it's actually written by a priest. It's really something that might interest a Catholic person, so it does have a limited market, I guess. However, this is all about Mary, and if you're not a Catholic, you probably don't get, but Mary's the mother of Jesus. And it's basically, I don't know whether you can see it. It's hard to get that to see it. It's actually poetry. So it's a whole poem written about Mary. So it's quite interesting. There weren't a lot of copies made of this book. So that has helped with the value of it because, it's quite scarce. And I have listed that one for $160. Then this one is a little bit controversial, I think, these days. This was written in the 1975 off the top of my head. Let me have a look and double check. But from memory, 1975. So this was written by Roy Brown. Now, Roy Brown actually was a teacher and a headmaster at back in the day at an autistic school, which, look, I believe when they've talked about it being an autistic school, I believe it might have been a home where they put some people that had back in the day had autism when it was first started to be recognised, but wasn't really, a lot wasn't known about it. And this book is called The Siblings. Now, this partially has extra value because this is a first edition, right? But part of this one's value is that it didn't stay The Siblings for very long. It was this one published in 1975. In 1976, this book was re-released as Find Debbie because the storyline is about a young autistic girl who disappears and ends up being murdered, but obviously the siblings as a title, didn't go as well as with a crime book. Find Debbie seemed to be more appealing. And when I say it's quite controversial, like some of the language and the topics and things in this are probably what we wouldn't consider politically correct these days. So, they talk about, so on the blurb inside the jacket, for example, it talks about Debbie. Debbie has the brain of a baby and is vicious with it. And then it goes on to, if I can find the bit, like she's basically talked about as if she's a real savage with no social skills or no, doesn't interact and stuff. But her parents have insisted on in-home care rather than putting her in a home. And, the part of the story is about how the parents, the policeman that's investigating it wonders at one stage whether, are these parents actually really upset that she's gone? They've reported her as missing, but I don't really think they're that upset that she's gone because she was such a hardship to look after. So, really interesting book. So anyway, I've listed that for $160. And then the creme de la creme of the books that I found in my death pile. So this book here is called Day of Wrath. And this is by an author called Joseph O'Neill. You'll see this is quite a plain one. This is an early edition. It's a first edition. You can see by the binding, this has been handwritten, not actually, full binding. Now, it's just a pity that we didn't have the full dust jacket, but all we've got is part of the dust jacket. And I can tell that this has been stuck on here, cut from the original dust jacket and just stuck on, not actually printed on here like it could be. That does happen sometimes because the words are cut off down here. So that is a shame. But I think what has happened, this has actually come from the Apex National Library. And I think what may have happened is because if it had the loose dust jacket when it was put into the Apex National Library, that perhaps that's when they've taken it off and put that on the front so that it wouldn't get lost and the dust jacket wouldn't get damaged. That aside, why is this book so special? So this is a first edition. It was written in 1936, and as I said, by an author called Joseph O'Neill. I was a bit stunned when I actually found out more information about this particular book. This is one of the very first, what we would class as science fiction books ever written. And this author, who I will just bring up the information on, because I want to give you the proper information about it. So it's better if I bring it up. So this is classed as like a future war novel. Now, this was written, as I said, in 1936, so it's between the wars. And it's set in a world where advanced aircraft wreak havoc. The book describes the devastating consequences of a coalition formed by Germany, Japan, and China. And throughout the book, the relentless air fleets unleash poison gas and systematic firebombing, obliterating population centres across Europe, America, and Asia. So this actually precedes most of the horror, modern warfare, and dystopian fiction that we now know as science fiction. And it is referenced in quite a lot of science fiction, the history of science fiction, such as the Encyclopedia of Science Fiction, Anatomy of Wonder, Tale of the Future, Voices Prophesying for War, Utopian Fantasy, and A Spectrum of Fantasy. Another author, Carl Wagner, who is a very respected figure in the science fiction and horror community, actually cited this book as one of the 13 best science fiction horror novels ever written. So there you go. It is a doozy. And what did I list it for? I have listed this book for $999.88 for this, like, who would have guessed? It's just an inconsequential looking little book, but has value. Now, I can only find one other one being sold in the world at the moment, and it is listed on eBooks and a couple of other rare book sites. It is currently listed for $850 US, which equates for us to about $1,200, $1,300, but it does have a dust jacket, a proper dust jacket, I have to say. Hence why I have listed mine a little bit lower, because I don't have the proper dust jacket. And plus, I would like to get the quicker sale. So there you go. And that is interesting, isn't it? So we talked about how much the Enid Blyton books were worth, and I've been picking up Enid Blyton books along the way. You just pick them up for 50 cents or $1, and then I had this huge ass amount of books, and so I did one original variation listing of 47 books, I believe. I think this one's got nearly 40 books in it as well, so that's 80. I've got equally as many paperbacks that I haven't listed yet, which we'll go into one or two more variation listings. So they've just been sitting there accumulating. Like, why am I keeping on picking these books up if I'm not going to sell them? It's unreal. So taking into account, if we say with that Enid Blyton one, if I sell that, as I said, taking a third of the money off, plus then all the other books that I have listed that either fell off eBay or I found in my death pile, plus this morning I also listed 4 vintage leather belts that were in my death pile, and I've got some more to list tomorrow of those. So it's not all books, but just between all of that, that comes to the grand amount of $3,521. Now, I'm realistic. I know that that's probably not going to all sell for full price, but still, that's the listed value. And, I'm always very reasonable when it comes to the pricing that I put on my stuff, because I want to sell it quicker. Even with my vintage books, even if they've got the high value, as you saw, like I probably could have listed this for $1,100 and waited longer, but, I will list it under the $1,000 mark. That's in 4 days. In 4 days, I have listed $3,500 worth of items on eBay from my death pile. So, get in there, have a look, pull it out, get it listed, because it's not going to do you any good just sitting there accumulating. That's all I've got to say. Oh, before I go, I do want to show you one ripper of a sale that I got that I found very interesting. Let me just check. So I do want to show you this sale because this was, again, one of the books that fell off eBay that I relisted. I listed it at $57.19. I did actually accept an offer of $50 on this book. Now, I know that this book, I know where this one came from, Werribee, and I know I only listed it on the 3rd of February, so it hasn't been listed for very long. And it cost me $1, and it is called Mayo, The Story of My Family and My Career by Charles Mayo from the Mayo Clinics, and it's his biography. Now, sometimes it's, you know, I mean, I could have held out for more money because that was a quick sale, but the address for the person that bought this book is care of the Mayo Clinic in America. How cool is that? So it's actually going back from whence it came. And that was too good an offer to refuse, not to send it back there. So I'm pretty impressed with that and pretty happy with that. And I come out with, you know, I'll tell you. Yeah, so for my dollar investment, after fees and postage, eBay fees, it was a promoted listing, so there were extra fees, and they are quite expensive when it does come to overseas sales. So there was transaction fees were $15.37. My promoted listing fee was $17.48. And, you know, all said and done, by the time they paid postage and then I paid postage, I come out with a profit of $31.29, which is pretty damn good for a dollar investment, wouldn't you think? I think so. So that is it for today. So get into those death piles and get them listed and start making money, because why not?